Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about close to my heart, my acrylic stamps, how to use them and how to care for them. So we're going to start out with this stamp set. As you can see, our stamps come in clear envelopes. When you remove them from the envelope, you see that they're located on a carrier sheet. When you look at the carrier sheet, you can see exactly how your stamps are going to stamp. Imagine if you were stamping in black ink, they would look just like this. So this shows you what the stamp set looks like. When you turn your carrier sheet over, you're ready to remove your stamps. We'll use this home stamp as our example. As we remove it from the carrier sheet to use, we want to be really careful and lift the edges gently, because there are sometimes stamps that have a little more delicate edges. For instance, this E has some little points and we wouldn't want to tear that. When you pull your stamp off the carrier sheet, you're ready to load it onto a block. You always want to choose a block that's as close in size to your stamp as possible. You'll get a much better stamped image that way. We've placed home on our block, and I forgot to point out, I'll just use this one as an example. You can kind of see on our block there is a little line across the back bottom of each of the blocks so that you can easily line your stamp up perfectly straight and ready to use. One thing that's important to remember, especially with a brand new stamp set, is to season your stamps before you use them. That's easy to do. You can just take your stamp, ink it on a regular stamp pad, and stamp it off several times, ink again, stamp it off several times, and that will help your stamp be able to absorb and stamp ink much better and more evenly. Or you can also season just by rubbing your stamp right against your skin. You can do it on the back of your hand, on your palm, wherever you choose, and then it's ready to go. In fact, I like to season my stamps every time I use them, and then I'm sure to get a really great image. There are several different kinds of stamps that we have. This home stamp is what we call an outline stamp. So if we pull the carrier sheet back out again and use it as our example, you can see that the word home here is just outlines. So when you stamped it, you'd be ready to color it in or leave it blank. You'll also notice this stamp here that says Sweet Home is a solid stamp. The part that you see on the carrier sheet that is black stamps solid, and the part that you see that is white or clear here is the negative space on the stamp. And I want to talk to you a little bit about putting a solid stamp on a block. We'll pull this off the sheet and again put it on a block that's as close to our stamp size as possible. And when you use solid stamps and put them on the block, you're going to want to make sure, actually any stamp, but solid stamps are a little more of a culprit. You'll want to make sure that there are no air bubbles between your stamp and the block where it's sticking. And you'll be able to see that right through your block. And if you do see a few air bubbles, just lift your stamp and work it back down as much as you can to push those little air bubbles out, and you'll be able to see that they're gone and it'll be ready to stamp. The larger the stamp, the more chance of air bubbles you're going to get as well. So you'll want to be conscious of that. They stamp great once you get those out. Okay, let's talk a little bit about one other kind of stamp. I'm going to pull in another stamp set. This one has some stamps that you can see that are just solid and don't make a lot of sense unless you know that they work together with another stamp. We call those stamps base and shade stamps. This sunshine and its shadow are a good example of that. The shadow is stamped first and then sunshine on top. Base and shade stamps can have 2 layers like this, or even 3 or 4 layers. The difference between those and other stamps is those stamps work together to make a total image that works. Sometimes you use different colors, sometimes lighter and darker shades to create that look with base and shade. We're going to do a little example here with sunshine. Before I do, I want to point out, you can probably see, especially if I turn my sheet over here for you, that the word sunshine here is just a little bit discolored. When you use stamps with darker colored stamp pads repeatedly, sometimes they discolor just a little bit, and there's nothing to worry about. They work just fine once they're discolored. As long as you're cleaning your stamps, they're just as good as new to use on your next project. We are going to take the word sunshine and put it on a block, as well as the base shadow here for sunshine. And we'll do our shadow in lemon and our word sunshine in black. We're going to pull this foam sheet in that you saw that came in the stamp set. Those are there not only to cushion the stamp in the envelope, but to use to stamp on. So you always want to put one of these underneath what you're stamping, and again, that will help you get an even better image. We'll open our lemon pad here, and we're going to start with the shadow. In this case, the shade. We're going to walk our stamp a little bit across the stamp pad to get it nice and evenly inked. And you'll be able to look right through your block and see if it's even. If you notice a part of your block that is of your stamp that is not inked, you'll want to go back and do a little more inking so that it's ready to stamp. I'm going to take my stamp and place it straight down and lift it straight up. Don't go in at an angle, otherwise you might slide or blur your stamp. Again, straight down and straight up. And you may have noticed that I didn't just lift it quickly. The more you hold your stamp there and let that ink sink into your paper, the brighter, bolder image you'll get with your stamp. So don't be in too big of a hurry to lift that stamp right back off the paper. Next, we'll move to our shade stamp here, Sunshine. We're going to ink that up in black. Again, look through to make sure it's nice and inked, and it is. So we're going to stamp this on top, and because we have a clear block and a clear stamp, we can see exactly where to place it. And this stamp's really fun because it gives you that 1970s look where everything's got a fun, long, wide shadow reaching out from it. And that is a nice base and shade example, and a few great stamping tips for you as well. As far as cleaning your stamps, this is our spritz cleaner, and this is our stamp scrubber. You can take your spritz cleaner and spray it right onto your scrubber or onto your stamp. I prefer the stamp, so we'll just spritz a little on there. Use our scrubber to scrub it clean. We'll put it right back onto its carrier sheet, and because we have this nice outline, we know exactly where to put it so that everything fits well. And then I like to take that scrubber, it's slightly damp from just cleaning, and rub it across my block too and get that nice and clean. If after a while your blocks tend to start to get a little cloudy because you've used them so much ink on them, and the scrubber itself isn't quite getting it clean, you can wash them in warm soapy water and dry them, and they'll be nice and clear and clean again. Also, if your stamps begin to start to lose their stickiness, you can wash those in warm water with no soap and let them air dry, and the stickiness will come right back to the back of them. And as we close, I thought I'd show you some fun art with some of the stamps that I just showed you to illustrate a few different kinds. This word home we talked about is an outline stamp. Here it's stamped without coloring in the inside. We've just added a little heart in the middle of the O. On this one, we've stamped it and colored it with watercolor. So outline stamps give you lots of different options. This Sweet Home was another one we talked about. This one is a solid stamp. And if we come over here to this Darling layout, you'll notice that we use the word Sunshine that I just demonstrated. So we have a base and shade here, and then Summer Vibes is another solid stamp. So you've learned a lot about stamps today, and hopefully you've got some great new ideas to go and use your close to my heart, my acrylic stamps.